All right, everybody, welcome back to the Finance here. We have another edition of the latest episode. We have a live stream today with a special guest, a good friend, Anjalee Khemlani. She's a senior reporter at Yahoo Finance. We're going to talk about media, obviously COVID and healthcare, which is her specialty in the area. And then if you have any comments or questions for her, feel free to mention them, tweet, list them on comments, whatever you have, feel free to reach out. Let me know what you're thinking, what you think is happening in the environment. We'll talk about the rollouts. We'll talk about her background and what her thoughts are on the industry. So without further ado, Anjalee, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So why don't you give us a quick background about yourself? You're actually from Florida. So, people will probably be surprised about why you live and work in New Jersey, but you actually worked with some amazing New Jersey establishments, media establishments. So ROI, NJBiz, and now you're at Yahoo Finance. So just quickly, how you got into healthcare, how you got into media, 36 seconds, whatever you like.
Sure. So media was actually something that was a goal from early on. In high school, I had already decided by that time I was going to be a journalist, and just kind of kept hopping around to places as life took me wherever a job was available when I was just out of college. And then I got into New Jersey. I worked for the Press of Atlantic City actually for a brief period of time. And then took a break out of New Jersey, and then hopped back in and hopped into healthcare with NJBiz. And it was because of my editor there, Tom Bergeron. He convinced me that it was going to be a topic that I might be interested in and good at. And I just kind of dove into it completely blind, completely green. I'd always kind of been interested in healthcare topics, reading about it, but never really thought I was going to be reporting on it. So that was very interesting for me. So yeah, worked on through. Then the bunch of people spun out and started ROI. I was on the starting team and was a managing editor there. And then after a while, it was time to move again, and here I am at Yahoo Finance.
Yeah, so that's for people that don't know, Anjalee and I met because we started our business in digital healthcare, and I met her when she was in NJBiz.
Yep.
And we did some articles for them, so that was pretty amazing. They're still a great media outlet, so it's pretty awesome. So you in the last, I don't know when you started Yahoo Finance, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I know everyone thinks it's been that long. It was only July 2019, so like 6 months before the pandemic.
Yeah, because I remember I came to the office once to check it out because it's pretty awesome. It's in Midtown, which is obviously we'll get to that story soon. But let's talk about you, because you came in at a pretty good time. Obviously a very hot sector. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're the only one that really runs the healthcare side of that business, because Yahoo Finance has different verticals.
That's correct. So for Yahoo Finance, I am the senior health reporter. There are some people who kind of dabble into it, or it's their interest, but the beat is basically assigned to me.
Got it. So that's awesome. So let's talk about, you've met a couple of the experts in the field before COVID hit. Met Seema Verma. I don't know if you had met Fauci before or after pandemic hit, but you still really after. Okay. So Seema is a pretty big name in CMS and in the industry. You kind of were basically building a year into it. You were building a large rep going into the pandemic. So let's talk about pre and then during the peak pandemic. What was building up this time last year? What was happening? What were kind of the red flags, yellow flags in the industry?
I feel like you're asking me a question and I'm like losing my mind at the same time, because I feel like nothing has existed before the pandemic. But if I try to roll back, some of the themes that I saw then are kind of actually coming to fruition now, and I'm kind of surprised about that. So we know that tech was really making its way into healthcare. I think a lot of focus was on big tech and AI at the time, and that was something that is still really big. The idea of how the industry was figuring out drug pricing and what to do about costs overall, that was really big, also still big now, but in a different way. I think what's really interesting is that a lot of the themes from then are still relevant now, but with the added layer of equity as a banner overlay on it. And that is fascinating to me, because the industry at large is paying attention to this concept in a way no one has seen, but people have been talking about, especially in the industry, for years. And so what else was kind of
What do you mean by
evolving?
equity?
So health equity, the idea that healthcare should be accessible to everyone, and that any historical undertones of prejudice or of bias or of unequal access should be removed, and things need to be figured out to address some of these issues.
Got it. So what was an example of that when we had a lockdown? For people that are in the upper middle class, they have access to either healthcare, health insurance, a lot of those equities that you talked about. When you don't have access to clinics, urgent care, or hospitals, what really shut down, the first 30 to 60 days that was inaccessible or basically inequitable for, I guess, the lower class?
It was the office, the physician's office. It was no access to telehealth. It was the digital divide. That is actually the key thing to this, because ironically, telehealth was created with the idea of urgent care, and especially focused on, say, rural areas or remote access, or people who are immobile or cannot get to the doctor's office. And a lot of these same people fall in the bucket of underserved communities through broadband. They do not have access to broadband, or don't have strong access to broadband, or they just rely on their phones and weak connections or weak service areas. So it just really exacerbated that problem.
Got it. Okay, so you virtually met Fauci, right? Maybe like June, July period.
Correct.
That probably was the peak period of trying to get a hold of him, or to at least understand what was happening during the crisis. How has it been reporting, or at least debunking some of the myths on COVID? A lot of things were changing every 2 weeks, like wear a mask, don't wear a mask, go out, viral spread, not viral, like whatever the coefficients were changing, day over day.
It's been frustrating, to put it mildly. And I know that I'm not alone in this. I know other health reporters have bumped into this, where, friends or family fall into the category of people who are frustrated, who don't believe the science, who think that it's all fear and no bite, and just trying to explain that we're watching things happen in real time. These are some of the things that would normally happen behind the scenes in the R&D process or in the development process. And because it's coming to light right in front of everyone, unfolding day by day, that has actually increased the amount of mistrust that people have in this very same information. And I almost feel like we all need to go back and have like a middle school, like a middle school lesson all over again, just the scientific process, and here's what happens. That's been sort of the thing that I keep thinking about is, it's hard to people understand it in the context of politics. You understand that people and policies and politics will change over time, but there's this reverence for science and the scientific and for data, especially. Yeah. And so watching it change over time in real life, I think that's been a really interesting experience for a lot of people who are paying attention.
Yeah, the biggest learning for me was the vaccine development and then the distribution, the rollout process. I haven't even got my hands on it because it was basically 6 months to get something into the hands of people, from March till November, September, whenever that period was before it rolled out. Now it's, we'll talk about delivery right now, but the development process was a really big breakthrough in some areas for that just R&D at the end of the day, because that's really hard to do. It doesn't happen that quickly. At least doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, I learned more about the vaccine manufacturing process than I ever thought. I say this on the phone all the time when I talk to sources. I'm like, I don't even know why I know this. I have a chemical engineer friend who's like, welcome to the phone.
Actually, can you highlight maybe one of the challenges, either the obstacles that the FDA has either removed, friction points to accelerate the development that's changed?
Yeah, well, so there are different agencies that were involved in different parts of the process to help it move as fast as it did. But if you're talking about the FDA in particular, they definitely cut down the time from, a file submission to the end of the emergency use authorization process. I remember when the first vaccine was supposed to get its EUA, we kept hearing warnings from, Dr. Peter Marks saying, even after the vaccine advisory committee meets, it could be weeks before we make a decision. And it came in 24 hours. And that just tells you how much faster they've been working and probably how much closer they've been working with these companies behind the scenes to get information in as quickly as possible and get as many people working on it because of the pressure that they're under right now.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So let's speed it up to now. December till February, the rollout has been pretty good. It's kind of picking up. It's picking up faster than I thought it would have, or it has been. Now we have like a series of vaccines. Could you give us a quick update of what the distribution, like the model is right now? We're seeing quite a few, like millions of vaccines being done every week to every day. And now it looks like it's going to be released by, it's going to be available basically to everyone by May. So it's going to be
That's correct. Yeah, so they're definitely rolling out north of 15 million, I believe now, vaccines per week, and they keep incrementally increasing it as much as they can. And a lot of things have been happening behind the scenes to make that happen. With ensuring that these companies have access to the products, to the equipment, and the government's doing this to have access to all that stuff that they need. And then expansion of partnerships. We know the big one with Johnson & Johnson and Merck partnering up. That may not actually affect the rollout now, but further down the line it could. So before that, there's contract manufacturing partnerships, as well as other, different types of contracts and partnerships that have existed or are existing solely to finish different parts of the process. So one part of it is making the vaccine, the other part is filling it, finishing it, sending it out. So there are people involved in these different things that have helped to speed it up.
And how much do you know about the economics of the vaccine? Who's incentivized to build it? Why are they doing it? There's obviously a lot of it included in the stimulus plan, or people are getting paid to do this. So, some people, was it Pfizer or Merck that didn't want to take any funding initially? So there was like some disincentives and some incentives to accelerate development.
Yeah, so Pfizer was the one, you're correct, on that did not accept initially Operation Warp Speed funding, and they still didn't for the development process of it. What they did accept is the government's help in accelerating their needs and prioritizing their needs of materials and of machines and stuff like that. But I would say that there's one sort of sentence and phrasing that is stuck in my mind that people keep repeating. And that is that the vaccine industry at large is not profitable. It just, a lot goes into it in terms of time of research and development, the production of it, and the payoff isn't as big. It's not like, regular drugs where you can price for the market. There's a lot of pressure on these companies to donate or provide it at cost or at lower cost. So it's, I think that's sort of where, that's as much as I understand about it and have seen happen.
Got it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm pretty impressed by how many more people are coming to market. I think there's going to be a flood of vaccines available in the next 8 weeks. So there won't be that supply issue, which we're kind of addressing right now. You have to be a certain age or meet a certain bracket. So you can just kind of flood the market with so much supply, and then anybody can get it. So there won't be a problem. The problem will be how many people will get vaccinated during a period of time. So it's basically a herd immunity. So people can't spread it, or it's not effective in spreading anymore.
Right. And the other problem after that actually is not just internally in the US, but also what happens to that vaccine supply. The government has already been asked about what will happen if we have an oversupply, because while we may have majority vaccinated, there's still going to be hundreds of other countries that need access to it or don't have herd immunity by then. And so what will the US be doing with its doses? Are we selling it outside? Are we donating it? And if so, how? Those are all questions that I think the Biden administration is currently dealing with.
And do you know anything about, there's been rumors about the vaccine passports or, access, and you talk about international, there's been rumors about you may need to show that you're vaccinated. I was invited to a conference in September and they said, I'll have to show that I get vaccinated if I want to go in San Francisco. I mean, the rules might change by September, but there's a lot of things that people want to do this summer before that.
It's a question mark still. I have a colleague who's working on sort of tracking this down and figuring out the legal parameters for it, and what is actually going to be enforceable and whether or not people are going to buy into it. Honestly, I don't have any more clarity than that for you. That's as much as we know.
No worries. I know it's a developing story. So everyone should always check your stuff out at Yahoo Finance. It's amazing. So let's quickly talk about Yahoo Media. The world of just digital media has really changed in the last 12 months. Substack is pretty big platform. Yes. Twitter is obviously the most accessible today for any medium, reporters, anybody who wants to talk to a reporter, and journalism. What's kind of changed? The distribution, the speed of news, a lot of things that are probably either true or false that you look at a title and you're like, this is not reputable, or this is not like a good factual source.
Yeah, I think that actually some of the same things that existed before the pandemic are almost amplified a little bit, I would say. And that is finding the reputable sources and understanding which media is actually providing original content and original verified content. Because there are some who will share all sorts of things based on rumors, based on I don't even know what. I've never delved into finding out what it is that they base their news reports on. But what I will say is that digital has been, I mean, you read it everywhere. Digital has seen a boom, no matter what aspect you're talking about, but also different avenues. So already the industry was sort of not fractured, but you definitely have like a lot of ways to get news right now, right? No one is just sitting around the TV at 8 p.m. waiting for primetime news anymore. That doesn't exist in a lot of the US right now. And people they like on-demand news. They like news almost catered to them because we're so used to, getting streaming services and having the algorithms figure out what it is that we want to watch and recommending based on that. I think people sort of expect the same from the news industry, and it's not quite there yet. But the way around that has been podcasts or newsletters, and those seem to be doing really well. I know that some people have dabbled into, say, TikTok or Snap or Insta, like, some of these other social apps, and broadened out from there. So that's another thing that I've seen sort of pick up is people looking to these normally sort of entertainment sources for news.
Got it. Yep. Podcasts, newsletters, YouTube, TikTok, all of them are pretty popular. So it's awesome. I love seeing it develop. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that space. So
totally.
I always thought you were in a good industry, obviously a very hot industry right now. To wrap it up, do you have anything you'd like to leave people off with? What should they either look out for? What should, obviously you're social, so tag yourself, whatever you think, people should follow you on. Let me know what should people follow up with?
Well, they should definitely follow up with the learning how to, and I say this all the time, just learn how to watch news properly, please. Just do it. Just figure it out. What does that mean? That means learn how to identify reputable sources. I had a teacher that I talked to, and she was like, what's missing? Critical thinking. And I think that a lot of people think that if they can, I agreed with that to a degree, but I think that if you keep thinking about what it is, you can easily be swayed in either direction if you're open to both sides of an argument. And that's a problem because that's how people get you. You have to actually check where the information is coming from. If it's a he said, she said, or, this expert versus that expert, that isn't always valuable. You have to see how many sources are being put into the story in order to judge it. So that's, I guess, a key tip. But also, because we brought it up, you can definitely follow me on TikTok because I'm trying out that as an experiment right now. AnjChemYF over there. And then I'm also on Twitter at AnjChem.
Yep, absolutely. Check out our TikTok. Check out Yahoo Finance's TikTok. Also read our articles. I read them all the time. They're great. It's fantastic. Great having you, Anjalee. It's always good catching up. Appreciate the feedback and the storyline about what's going on in the world today.
Absolutely. Glad we could do this.
Thank you, everybody. Then again, you can find this recording online. Also, just check it out on the Finance Here, on LinkedIn, and any other platform you follow me on. Until next time, I'll see everybody. Take care.